The Sephardic people, they got affection. They give you love. Sephardic, it's different. See, like my grandson says to me, I can help Grandma to love you so much. I got Sephardic blood in my body. I came here to raise my children. A Jewish tradition, to give them a good life. I came to the United States, but most important, that I belong to Avadahim when I came.
What Sephardic means to me is that is really the essence of my being. It really is.
Traditions for me, it's an essence in all of us.
Because we have a very rich culture, very rich.
It's romanzas, I think the music.
For me, family. It's all about my family.
As Sephardic families, we always found joy in almost anything.
We know how to welcome people.
It just sends chills up my spine, and I know why, because that's my heritage, and I love it so.
The melodies, the memories.
And the food.
This is the story of Portland's Sephardim, descendants of Jews exiled from Spain in 1492, who centuries later brought their faith, their families, and their traditions to a new land, immeasurably enriching the place that became their new home. The first Sephardic Jews came to what is now New York in 1654, but the West Coast Sephardic community began around 1900. Young men and women came from Rhodes, Turkey, and other places in the Ottoman Empire, seeking a better life.
Oh, my sisters, everybody was born in Greece, in Drama, Greece. My mother was born in Turkey, in Izmir. And my father too, in Turkey.
My parents were immigrants. My father came from the village of Yanina in northern Greece. My mother came from the island of Rhodes.
My father was from the Isle of Rhodes. My mother came from Russia in the area of Kiev.
Sephardics started coming here in about 1910. They had gotten letters from home saying that Portland, Oregon is where money grows on trees, and of course, jobs were plentiful, and it was a wealthy country.
The word Sephardim means from Spain. Sefarad in Hebrew, in Ivrit, is Spain. Sephardim are those from Spain in Hebrew. We are truly part of a diaspora. We were literally sent packing.
After the Inquisition in Spain, after the persecution, after being scattered all over the world, the fact that in every corner of the world there are Sephardic communities, Ad Hayom, to this day, is the greatest tribute to the Jewish determination to live.
I was comfortable in Greece, but life was not happy. No family, nobody. My husband business, he was successful and everything. But what is money if you're not happy?
Fortuna Calvo would tell me the story about her father landing on the waterfront in Seattle, and a young Ashkenazi Jewish boy entered into the commotion and tried to speak with these two young men, 17 years old. They were true pioneers. And he pulled out his tzitzit katon from his pants. He took his siddur out of his satchel and began to read Hebrew. He began to daven on the streets in Seattle. They wire back to New York, and the Chachamim back in New York say, hey, these boys are Sephardim. They have Spanish ancestry. They're Jewish just like you are. You take them in. They're your co-religionists. So they put them up in a shack behind the synagogue, and that's how the Pacific Northwest Sephardic community began over 100 years ago in 1900, and began what is today Portland's Sephardic community.
And the congregation incorporated in 1916 without a building, without a place to worship, but they did find places for the high holidays and the festivals.
Growing up in South Portland, I loved it. First of all, the hills were there, and as a child, we used to just roam those hills like mad. Got poison oak a lot, but it was okay. And
Most of the Sephardic Jews lived in the same neighborhood.
Oh, sure, it was very convenient. But growing up here was lots of fun. Lots of fun. I loved it. We didn't have telephones when I was a child. And yet, if you did anything wrong, by the time you got home, your mother knew about it.
I remember growing up with family and neighbors who all knew each other and liked each other, and we're all part of the same community, socialized together. It was just lovely. Old South Portland was thriving.
The Sephardic community was a very cohesive group of people coming here to this country and from different parts of Europe.
I remember stories about my father coming. He got on a train across Canada, and the only thing he had no money with him, and the only thing he had with him was some chocolate candy bars that he was able to get before he got on the train, and he ate chocolate candy bars coming across the country.
Not only were our mothers best friends, but our fathers were first cousins.
So why aren't we best of friends? I have no idea, but we can discuss that later.
It was a pre-arranged marriage, and they picked Daddy, and the two of them got married here in Portland, Oregon.
Portland's Sephardic immigrants often opened small businesses like fruit and vegetable stands, shoe repair shops, fish markets, or small grocery stores and restaurants. The hours were long and people worked hard.
I remember vividly waiting for my father to close his fish market so we would go to synagogue. If I was lucky enough to have it early, I got to stop at Catel's drugstore and get a milkshake before going. It was just, that was part of growing up.
And my dad worked he sold shoes for 20 years or more.
The early life in Portland, we never had money to speak of. You know, my father had a business between Cooch and Davis, a clothing store. He started out as a shoe repairman. Before you know it, he put in shoelaces, suspenders, started bringing in clothes, and he opened up a store, and he did okay.
Well, your aunt and uncle had a store in the Portland market.
My
down
Aunt
on Yemen.
Sarah and Uncle Raymond.
Yeah.
They had a fruit store on Yam Hill Street first, and then they had a deli further up on Yam Hill. That was their whole life, was their stores.
Lives. They never had children or a family, but they had that store in the market.
In those days, Yam Hill Street had fruit stands and they had stalls, like farmer's market today. You could buy whatever you want, vegetables and fruit at the farmer's market. And I'd go there and I'd spend the rest of the day with my father. I'd come home with him on the streetcar. Our neighborhood was South Portland. That's where most of the Jews lived. What I did, while I didn't stay in the store, I got a little cigar box. I filled it up with razor blades and shoestrings, and I went out to every restaurant in town around the area that my father's store was, razor blades, shoestrings. They used to kick me out of some of the restaurants. Hey, get out of here. I get out, I go to the next restaurant. And I bring back at night, before I go home with my dad, I bring back around $3 or $4. He only made $2 that day.
Everything was downtown. Everything was downtown, yeah. And it was fun doing. It's like what you have your Saturday markets of today. That's what it was.
I used to work in the market on Saturdays and during the week in the summer. I think I started when I was about 12. It would be shameful to say how much they paid me. $10 a week.
In the markets is where most of them all worked. A lot of them, and worked very hard. Came home very late hours. Pacific Power Line at that time did not hire Jewish people. So they found out. He took the days off for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And somebody said, where's Sam Sadis? And somebody said, oh, he's taking off for the Jewish holidays. And then he was let go. You couldn't do anything about it like you could today.
During the war, our dad, Shaya Sadis, who was a shoe dyeing expert, he dyed women's shoes for the entire city of Portland. After he died, my mother received checks in the mail from people, porters, bellmen, all kinds of people in the Portland area, downtown Portland, sent my mother $5, $10, $20, because my father always helped them out when they were in need. So that's the kind of guy that we had for a father that raised his family.
For nearly a century, Congregation of Adahim has been at the heart of Portland's Sephardic community. Its name means brotherly love, and it was founded by families from Rhodes and Turkey. Today, it embraces Jews from many Sephardic and Ashkenazic traditions.
History of Avadahim is that in about 1910, 1911, 10 men, Sephardic men, got together at B'nai B'rith. Up until about 1916, they had enough Sephardic people in Portland that they decided to start a congregation.
When I went to the Avadahim the first time, oh my God, my heart opened, and my husband too. He said that's where we belong, and we stay there.
My father was a charter member. Before it was built, my father was here. He helped build it.
I remember the basement the most, because there were so many times there were activities and parties there.
In those days, that was their whole life. That's where their social life was.
And I remember people dancing and money being put on people's heads, and Och and Babani picking up the money and be the one to gather all the money. Whenever they had a party where there was this dancing, they made a lot of money.
But the history of this synagogue, I think, is incredible. It's just unlike any other synagogue in how people wanted to keep it going and continue.
One of the Menashe gentlemen took me over to Avadahim. And I said, man, this is the place. This is the place for me. The melodies were there. They sang the same melodies. You just had one small community, all the Mizrahi Jews, all the Balkanes, all of the Israeli Jews, the Turks, the Rodezlis, everyone, the Yemenis, all thrown together in one big pot.
On Shabbat, we had my relatives from Los Angeles here. Renee, he said, your synagogue is so warm and inviting. I've never been to a synagogue like that, where you just, a stranger, we walk in and we feel immediately like we're family in this synagogue that we've never been to before.
They feel comfortable, they feel part of the synagogue. Not only one person ran the synagogue all the time. We all want to pray to God. Everybody wants to bring a little gift. So this is how it is.
And that's the way our synagogue is. It's very warm.
Always have been that way. We love our synagogue. We want it to be maintained. We want it to survive.
It's a beautiful synagogue. I think it should be preserved for as long as we can. It was very big attendant. Lots of people were coming. And it was like a home.
We were always visiting. And Sam Babani would give us a leer.
Yeah. Scare us to death if they looked. That's all he had to do was look.
It was a wholehearted effort on the parts of a lot of our members to keep doing the services, to basically put the synagogue at the top of the list of important things to take part in and take part of. Like to see it live. We worked hard for 30, 40 years that I was in Portland to make sure that it was still around. We want to see it around for forever.
I remember the sukkah in the back of the synagogue in Avadahim. And I remember the beautiful natural grape arbor that they used to have over the top of the sukkah. And I remember having Sukkot dinners. They used to bring their dinners. They used to cook their dinners, and the ladies would bring their dinners to them. We all had dinner in the sukkah the whole week of sukkah. It was magical. I still remember that. And I just love Sukkah because of that. And then after Sukkah, in the fall, they had to cut the grape leaves, and they cut the grape leaves, and then all the ladies made yaproks out of the grape leaves. From the Sukkah, from the back of the synagogue, we had yaproks. It was just absolutely wonderful.
I do remember when we were kids, we did go to the holiday that made a lot of noise, and they gave out candy.
Yeah, they used
Yes. I do remember that as kids.
Impressive.
Right.
The throwing of the candy and the money and the kids scrambling.
Breaking Passover.
Looking forward to that.
Just celebrating and appreciating the kids and kind of like, thanks for sticking it out the whole 8 days.
On Shabbat, everybody would walk to synagogue, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful community.
I just got so teary-eyed thinking, oh my God, my father's 3 grandsons are all here in the Sephardic synagogue, all being called to our Sephardic Sefer, and the service was all in Sephardic and Ladino, and I just can't tell you how moved I was by that experience of our family tradition and heritage, and how special that was to feel the Sephardic impact in my life at that moment.
As a matter of fact, at one time there was even talk about merging the congregation with our congregation, but it never was fulfilled for a very admirable reason. Members of Avad Achim were so devoted to their congregation that they wanted to preserve it against all odds. I was happy with that, so admirable in their story.
The city of Portland launched an urban renewal clearance project in the 1960s that claimed 54 blocks in the heart of the historic Jewish South Portland community. Members of Avad Achim sought to save their beloved building and had to face unexpected challenges.
The urban renewal not only took our synagogue, they took our community. That whole area was gone, and so that community was never to be again, and that was really a shame.
The story of Avad Achim, the building that we have now, the little round building, before that we had the original building. The city of Portland wiped out 3 synagogues in 1 year because we're redoing the city, new highways, and our synagogue, we had to either tear it down or move it. It's a big brick building.
And by 1960, the building was slated to be demolished by the city of Portland.
Before they did it, my brother says, we can't move that building. We got a lot, but we better insure it. Got to take it 4 or 5 blocks.
They sold the building to the city and bought it back for $1 and hired a moving company to actually lift up the building off of its foundation and to move it about 10 blocks to the site of our current building.
We all went because we wanted to see this big synagogue made of brick being moved.
Items that we owned were inside the building because at that time they said, well, if we're going to move the building, we don't have to vacate everything. We can just move everything inside the building.
The strongest memories that I have of Avad Achim, as many others in Portland did, planning to move their synagogue from, I believe it was on 3rd Avenue. In the course of moving the synagogue, it collapsed.
I was there the day that synagogue collapsed. When they moved that synagogue, that was a very, very devastating time.
When they took it off the foundation and moved it onto the street to start rolling it 4 or 5 blocks away, it was a hot day. Really hot, like 100 degrees. The tar that the building was on, the street, was soft. It went down, the tires sunk into the cement, into the pavement. And the building didn't fall, but it cracked.
The city condemned the building on the spot, and then the building had to be destroyed on the spot.
I remember 2 wonderful people that aren't with us anymore, one being my brother and the other Sam Menashe, going into a condemned building to carry out the Sefers and whatever books they could. I'll never forget that.
Cannot move it, got to tear it down, right where it's at, tear it down. It was against the law to go inside. My brother and about 4 or 5 other Sephardic boys at night went there, took the Torahs out.
That was pretty heroic and very, very brave.
And illegal besides.
What are they going to do, put them in jail?
Yeah.
Heroes never worried about that.
That made a big sensation in Portland. First of all, the very fact that a synagogue collapses in the middle of a street was a remarkable event. And secondly, Portland always took pride in the fact that it was the home of one of the very few Sephardic congregations in the country.
And the big headlines, and I had the paper for years, but I don't know where it's at. It said, today, in the Oregonian, today a synagogue died.
I feel that a part of Portland died with urban renewal.
It was devastating. I mean, everybody was in tears. I mean, never thought, they were taking it across town. Everybody took days off just to come because it was advertised that it was going to be moved. If it wasn't for the urban renewal, God only knows if it would still be there.
It lives in my memory. But then a lot of things that have died live in my memory.
The shock, I think, made them more open to change.
So we took the money and we built this other synagogue. And it's a beautiful little synagogue.
Although there was controversy because most of Portland's Sephardic Jews by that time lived on the east side.
Yes.
and they wanted the synagogue on the east side. There were no synagogues on the east side. And that was a big controversy.
Well, yes.
They changed the building besides changing the location, and that was a time when they could begin to think about changing the nature of the congregation. In every generation, every congregation changes. Young people come into the congregation, they have new ideas, different ideas, and I think more young people began to take over from the older generation, changing the congregation. They were more open and more inviting to non-Sephardic members.
Sephardic culture is a bright tapestry of colors, fragrances, flavors, and song. There is an emphasis on beauty and graciousness, hospitality and joy. Food is a celebration, it is community, and it is tradition.
It's gorgeous. Well, taste one now. Oh! Honest, I got taste one. You see crispy? Come on, here. I make comida.
Oh, yeah.
Food is the most important thing, sitting at the dinner table. And the Jewish people have always had their Friday night dinner, which brings the family together.
And my grandmother was always in the kitchen. Always in the kitchen.
All of those foods bring back memories.
Sure do.
Because we put a lot of thoughts, a lot of knowledge, a lot of feeling in the food. So the food became real good.
I think my grandmother never knew how many people she was having until they showed up for the holidays.
I was raised on it. I learned how to make everything, and I've taught it to my daughters.
So my son said, Mama, I'll keep the tradition.
Well, you know, I like my mother's cooking.
My mother thought hers were the best. And I told my mother once that Sarah the Blondia Pratis were the best. And boy, my mother got mad at me.
But it doesn't taste like yours, he says, but I eat it.
Foods I like and still make are pescado tomate.
Amejalas, very beautiful.
Cebollas reinadas.
Borekasim.
Yiprox.
Yeah.
Then I make jijiki, yogurt, garlic, and cucumber, vinegar and oil and salt, and mix them up.
My children make borekas.
Like stuffed zucchini, stuffed tomatoes, peppers.
Pandericas.
Pandericas, gado.
I make my pescado cochum, my cuajada de spinaca.
The bollas de spinaca. They're like a dough with the spinach and the feta inside. Oh, they're delicious.
Boyus?
Boyus.
Of course I had
They had
boyus.
boyus.
Of course we had boyus.
Yeah.
There's no way to do it.
Bollas de spinaca.
Boyus for breakfast. My son makes boyus.
Oh,
Par excellence.
whoever's house it used to be at years ago, well, it's at my house, I get an extra batch. Am I right?
Yeah, we still fight over them, you know. but-
They're like gold. They're amazing.
And they take bread and clean the dish. And they clean the dish, yeah.
Bamyas, without doubt, bamyas. Yeah, bamyas, borecas, and boyas starts with the B. You don't need any other letter of the alphabet.
They're all warm, cuddly things to me.
Almost everything is my favorite.
Eres apreciado, mío querido. Yo te amo mucho. Más que mi alma y mi corazón, querido. You come to Portland, I'll make you comida. You can lick your fingers.
Ladino, sometimes called Judeo-Spanish, was the everyday language of Sephardic Jews well into the 20th century. Based on medieval Spanish, it includes words and phrases from Hebrew, Turkish, Greek, and other languages. It united Sephardic Jews, and with it, they created a rich spoken and written literature.
Judeo-Espanol can be mixed not only with just Espanol, but it can be mixed with Italian and Moroccan, and all different languages go into the Judaismo experience.
It was a way of describing things that didn't have an English translation.
Yeah, our language it tells so much. I mean, my papu called me Jambazico. I was always jumping around. I was the acrobat, and my grandmother called me the Mazaloso. I was the lucky one. I mean, these are words that no one else knows and no one else speaks. And sometimes when I try to speak a little bit of Ladino Spanish and I'm speaking to someone who might be from Mexico or from somewhere, I use some words and they're not quite sure what I'm talking about. And then I explain to them, I am Muzavi, I'm Judío. I come from, my ancestry is Spanish, but it's mixed with Hebrew blood, with Jewish blood. And then they understand, oh, you're the Sephardim. Some people know, they understand. So
because it made us unique, different, that we could speak, we were not Hispanic, yet we could speak Spanish. We were just so proud of our Sephardic heritage that my sister and I learned as much as we could. Even today, my sister and I have code words we use that nobody else can understand.
My parents would speak Ladino in our home when they didn't want me to understand what they were saying. I knew when they were speaking it, I wasn't supposed to understand it, so I would try my darndest to figure it out.
If they wanted to speak privately when we were around, then they'd speak Turkish, so that my sister and I would not understand what they're talking about.
And when my parents wanted to speak between the two of them without us knowing what they were saying, they spoke Turkish.
My children don't speak Ladino. They don't understand Ladino. We speak it once in a while when we don't want them to understand what we're saying.
At first, it was their way of talking without us knowing what they were talking about. But eventually, my sister and I learned the language.
There's a few phrases that I know, and that's about it.
You can't use those in the interview.
Yeah, some of them are swear words.
Yeah.
And I got the swear words from his father.
Although there's still a lot of words that stick with you all the time, you never forget.
The lines that my papu used to say to me, I'd say, Grandpa, you have a wonderful mustache, and he'd say to me, Chico, te vas a casar y te vas a caser un mustacho, which meant first you get married, then you grow a mustache.
Some of the famous ones, comporto de asno.
One of our favorite sayings is Silamet
Kunelbe Gilgil.
One of the other ones, of course, is Uso de Mantel, which is it means son of a tablecloth. But, when your mother, says that to you and you're really not sure what it means, it sounds horrible.
Go in God's name. With God's name.
We never walk out of the front door on a trip, ever, to this day, without kissing the mezuzah and saying Silamet Kunelbe Gilgil.
There were a lot of different words that we did not know the English. We didn't know there was an English equivalent.
They wanted to learn English. They wanted to become citizens. I mean, that was very important to them, to be part of the society.
Really never made an effort to teach it to us. And the attitude of most of us kids was that we are in America, we're Americans, we're speaking English.
And I would say to my mother, You're in America, you must speak English. I don't want you speaking Ladino.
We're in America, and we're going to speak American. And that's what they did.
We just speak English. And then we don't understand each other. 100%.
You know, I always say, when people say, Abulafia, what kind of a name is that? And I say, well, my ancestry is from Spain. Do you speak Spanish? Well, entiendo un poquito, pero no hablo bueno. I don't speak a lot, but I listen and I hear and I understand quite a bit. So just enough to be dangerous is what I tell them.
In the Sephardic tradition, babies are named after living grandparents. The first son or daughter is usually named after the father's parents. The second son or daughter after the mother's.
I came to Portland in 1951 after meeting my husband on a blind date. I met him on a Thursday, got engaged Sunday, and had a full wedding the next Thursday. We shocked everybody. My grandmother was there, and she said, Menashe. Good name, good family. It's okay. That was my grandmother.
In Sephardic culture, we name after the living to give joy to the grandparents.
Allegra is happy, Simcha. That is, my Jewish name is Simcha.
My father changed the name to Russell from Russo, a bona fide Sephardic with the name Russo.
My mother used to call me Alegria, happiness.
Like our second date, I told her what our first son's name was going to be.
I was named after my grandmother Reina, which in Ladino means queen.
My middle name, Isaac or Yitzhak, is from my grandfather on my dad's side.
I was named after Safira Israel, and that's my Hebrew name is Safira. And my granddaughter is named Safira.
So when we got together for any occasions, and they would call Sultana or Sue or Susie, 5 of us all come running. And then we got nicknames. Susie la Chica, Susie la Grande, and if you were thin, or if you were fat, or if you were tall, if you were short. So we got nicknames.
Your first child's a boy, you name it after your father. Well, in my case, my grandfather, my father was Sam, so they named my brother Sam. At one time in Portland, there was 5 Sam Menashes.
I was named after my great-grandmother on my mother's side.
My brother and all my cousins practically are named David after my grandfather.
Actually, there's 4 of us now. And we were all named after our grandfather, Albert Menashe. His son named his son, Albert Menashe.
A lot of Menashes in Portland. A lot of Menashes. Being that there are so many Sam Menashes in Portland, one Menashe gets the other Menashe's bill. They're getting all the bills mixed up.
Esther and I have something in common. Both her parents were named Sarah and Sam Menashe.
Well, which Albert Menashe is this bill? Honey, did you buy this? We didn't know what was going on, but we worked it out.
All the stores mixed up their bills continually. And the best part of being mixed up was when my father passed away. He was buried in his father's grave. And Albert's father, Sam, says, well, I guess I had an out-of-body experience. That was the ultimate of name mix-ups.
My father was David. I have a David. Judy has a David. And at the holidays, there were 4 Davids in my parents' home. And anybody that said David, everybody else turned their head.
So if someone says to me, are you related to? I just say yes. They don't have to ask me. I just say yes.
We're all family. Yeah, we are all family.
My mother was Sarah Capilouto Menashe. She was Sarah the Blonde.
Then there was Sarah the Blonde, because there were 2 Sarah Menashes, and the only way you distinguish between the 2 of them is one was blonde and one had the dark hair.
She had black hair, this Menashe had blonde hair.
Because it got confusing having 2 Sarahs in the immediate family. And the Blondie strip had just come out. So that's how my mother got the name Sarah the Blonde, or Blondie, or Blondica.
Music evokes and it connects. In prayer, traditional melodies inspire the soul. In everyday life, Romances, or songs, link the generations and warm the heart.
The Sephardic melody, you can beat it. It's beautiful.
Go from grave to grave and say a prayer, and then we would, leave the rocks and make a good wish. So that has gone by the wayside, but it is a tradition that should be known and remembered.
I looked at my grandmother. I looked over and she was crying. Big tears were coming from her eyes. And I looked over. I said, "Noni, what's the matter? Preciada, why are you crying?" And she said, "Marco, these are the songs my mother sang to me when I was a child."
It's the closeness. There's something, and the rhythm, the tunes, the melodies.
You know, it's all about corazón, and the romanzas tell us that.
My mother gave me a nickel for every song that I would learn in Ladino, and I know a lot of them.
And there's something about the music that brings you back to it, that you remember as a child.
They really had wonderful meaning. Árboles is just a beautiful song. Árboles, it's the trees cry for rain. I mean, these are the songs that the Judíos sang when they loaded them into boxcars, took them to the concentration camps. I mean, it's very powerful stuff.
Mama yo quiero, mama yo quiero, mama yo quiero. Mamá, en la chupeta, si no voy a llorar. Dúrmete, niño, y no llores más, porque ven la cucu y te comerás. Toma la chupeta, si quieres mamá, quiere mamacita, quiere trabajar.
And I see the melodies of Jack Maimon, who was beautiful singing.
Rabbi Maimon is the rabbi that I grew up with, an absolutely extraordinary man.
When I came, Avram Junio was singing so beautiful.
But just from his voice and from hearing him sing, and that's where I fell in love with the wonderful melodies that we have at our synagogue.
It really was something, my heart opened, and I say, I belong to that life now.
They're all so full of love and beautiful things, and
it's gorgeous.
Today, Sephardim play important roles throughout Portland as leaders and as members in Jewish and community groups and in the business and professional world. New immigrants from throughout the wide Sephardic diaspora have joined Portland's earlier Sephardic families to create a rich, diverse community.
That is a blessing for the house, bendición de la casa. Oh God, God bless this one, la casa, the home. Oh Dios, bendicha esta casa, con paz, with peace, salud y riqueza, health y richness. Que la misma, the same one, sea morada, to live here forever. Say de alegría y amor, happiness with love and prosperity.
I know that one thing, we are proud of what we are.
Yeah, we feel rich.
Even among my Ashkenazi friends, I'm always proud to say I'm Sephardic.
Especially like right now, there's maybe a question mark or a transition time between what's going on in the Sephardic community today here in Portland. And I think this is precisely the time to emphasize and preserve what we have, to try to build a future and to sustain our tradition and what we have.
I hope it could go on. I'd like to see it grow. I'd like to see more of the Sephardics become involved in it.
It
But
was
we're
like
no
a
longer,
family.
let's face it, we're no longer Sephardic Jews. We're American Jews. We're 2 generations away from the old ways.
I would like to see the Sephardic culture coming back.
We've become a new community, and that's a good thing. I mean, we've become American Jews, and that's the way it's going to be. It's not going to go back.
I think if there's any resurgence of Sephardic life, it'll be through the culture and the traditions and not necessarily through the religious observance.
And they would find younger people to come in and seek their heritage.
The future for us is to have the kids, I think how we get there is not important. Whether we have a rabbi, not have a rabbi, get rid of the rabbi, move the building over there, whatever it is we have to do, we're going to do so that we can keep up moving.
A desire not to let something precious get away from us.
I think the older I get, the more important that becomes.
Im tirtzu einzu agada. If you wish, if you desire, it is not a dream.
People say, how you guys doing down there at the Yavad Achim? And I say, hey, doors are still open.
The Sephardic community wanted to preserve the congregation. There were many times when it seemed doubtful that it could happen. They never lost hope.
I belong there, and I've always identified very strongly with the Sephardic community. Sometimes, according to my wife, too much.
I know that I have instilled a love of the Sephardic heritage in my children.
But we knew our identity, and we knew who we were, and we were very proud of our heritage. And to this day, I'll always belong to Avad Ahim. That's who I am.
That wonderful core is instilled in all of us, and hopefully we've instilled it in our children, and that's how the Sephardic memories are going to continue.
And delighted that they have reached their 100th anniversary.
It's important that we've been here for 100 years, that we document that we've been here for 100 years. Vida Sefaradi, Sephardic life, living Sephardic.
I am so proud to be a Sephardic.
There's nothing we wouldn't do for each other. And to me, it's the family that is very important.
It's one thing to say, I pledge allegiance to the flag, but what is it all about? Pledge allegiance to the family and your history.
But for me, Judaism too is family time. It's just being together.
Togetherness, warmth, pride, again, food.
Yes.
To me, being a Sephardic Jew is just who I am. It's just who I am.
I'm a Sephardic Jew. I'm a Turkino, but I'm a Sephardic Jew first.
It's good life.
It's a way of thinking, acting, being, doing. It's cellular level. It's everything.
The percentage of Jewish communities in America that have Sephardic congregations is extremely low. And if we didn't have the Sephardic congregation of Avat Achim, we would be missing an important, significant element in Jewish life.
Árboles lloran por lluvias y montañas por aires. Así lloran los mis ojos por ti, querida amante. Torno y digo, ¿qué va a ser de mí? En tierras ajenas yo me voy a morir. Oh man. that's just, nothing says it like that. Nothing says it like that.
Ansi lloran los mis ojos por ti, querida amante. Ansi lloran los mis ojos por ti, querida amante. Torno y digo, ¿qué va a ser de mí? En tierras ajenas yo me voy a morir. Árboles